Hello, welcome back to the All Out Soccer Podcast. Myself, Jeremy Goldstein, and my co-host, Joseph McBride, we're two football fans talking about soccer. We focus on a fusion of the MLS, the U.S. men's and women's soccer teams, and the build-up to the 2026 World Cup. Joe, we got U.S. men's national team roster news. We got MLS playoffs, depending on your level of fandom in whatever order you can rate those things mentally in your head. How are you doing?
I'm good. It was a great weekend, as we'll get into. I kind of wish it was continuing, but never mind. US will do for now.
There's nothing like the first round of a playoff series where it's usually quantity over quality. You focus on just like, oh, here's a game here, blah, blah, blah. But now it's going to narrow down to, the best of ones. But the best of threes, I still hate them. I hate penalties deciding things so disproportionately. You're going to hear me rant about Minnesota. But it was fun, right?
It was great. I mean, I don't mind penalties when it's in a decisive game. Obviously, the game's got to end at some point, but just take them out of game 1 and 2. Come on, man.
And no extra time before the penalties. As you say, the game's got to end, but they could still be played. Anyway. Let's just do a quick little recap of what happened. My Amal Pellegrino prediction, Joe, finally came true. He scored twice for San Diego as they survive the 8th-seeded Portland Timbers to advance 2-1. Herving Lozano still on the bench for San Diego FC, but hey, they're an expansion team in the second round. That's pretty cool. The Battle of Ohio favors the Queens as Cincinnati knocked off Columbus 2-1 thanks to 2 Brenner strikes. He's back in town. He's back in the goals. Who else came good? $8 million man Nico Fernandez for NYCFC with 2 delicious solo transitional moments to help his side become the only lower seed, true story, to advance. Number 5 seed NYCFC knocked off number 4 Charlotte in the East. Oh yeah, Miami and Minnesota, they were victorious over Nashville and Seattle respectively. Those are all the game threes. We're going to start with that. What else do we have after that? We have an MLS second round prediction, a mini prediction to look forward to, a U.S. men's national team roster recap where we take a look at some of the injuries and players called up to replace them. A Gio Reyna deep dive. Yes, he's back. It's 2025. We're still talking about Gio Reyna. Look at some of the injuries in depth and a quick little World Cup news roundup and a little sneak peek of the U.S.'s upcoming games. Okay, that was a lot. Joe, let's start in Miami, where it could have been the end of their season, but instead it was just a dominant performance.
It was. I was hoping for a closer game, and it possibly should and could have been closer, and we'll get into that. But the headline is, for the first time ever in their franchise history, Inter Miami has advanced from the first round of the MLS Cup playoffs. Incredibly, better late than never with so many stars departing at the end of the season. But it was a dominant win. There's no other way of saying it. 4-0, 2 goals in each half. The first half was dominated, the whole game was dominated by Lionel Messi. But the first half, he scored a brace. Second half, Tadeo Allende scored a brace himself, the second being one to watch. But this was a shame for Nashville, is the way I'm going to phrase it. A road game in a decisive game 3. You want to soak up that pressure for the first 20, 25 minutes and then try and find a way into the game. Unfortunately, they were their own Achilles heel early on. 10 minutes in, Matthew Cochran, young midfielder, turned around, attempted to pass to his defence, and unfortunately, Lionel Messi was there waiting to pounce. He essentially assisted him. He still had a lot to do. He still had half the field to run. He still had 3 or 4 players to get round, but this is Lionel Messi. So he scored 1-0 to Miami. Towards the end of the first half, a ball was played through to Matteo Silvetti, who was only playing because Luis Suarez was not in the squad due to his suspension. He's 19. He's through on goal, one-on with the goalkeeper. Anyone else usually would shoot and have their moment. He looked up, saw Lionel Messi for a better pass, played it to him. He put it in the back of the net, 2-0. Start of the second half, this is where the controversy begins. 40 seconds in, substitute Jacob Schaffelberg breaks down the right, crosses it to Sam Surridge. It's a goal. Puts it in, but no, the referee blew his whistle before the ball went in, called out for a foul. Maxime Falcone is in the ground, crying as if he'd been shot. That wasn't the case. There was the slightest bit of contact with Surridge, and the goal was waved off. If the referee had waited and the goal went in, they could have reviewed it. We would have seen then, but it was very soft and very harsh on Nashville. That could have been a turning point in the entire game, but it actually worked against them. Their heads dropped after that. It was a real shame. But then Allende stepped up. So first goal he scored in the 73rd minute to put the game beyond Nashville 100%. Lovely bit of play from Jordi Alba and Lionel Messi down the left. cut across goal. It's kind of similar to the second, and he puts it into an empty net. But the final goal of the game may already be the goal of the MLS Cup playoffs so far. It was a wonderful ball through from Messi again, always at the center of things. He still had a lot to do in day. Did a scoop chip. There was like 5 seconds of hang time. Dropped perfectly into the corner. It's an amazing goal. I'd really encourage you to check out if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, a great result for Miami. And I know we've said about the interruption of this international break with how they played. I don't really think they'll want to stop playing, but they're through to the next round and they will now face, as we'll get into, Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think Maxi Falcone is maybe the worst player I've ever seen in my life.
That's a statement.
Every transition looks like he has no idea where he's going. He had some clearances that were awful. His tracking of Surridge on that goal that should have stood was very amateurish. He has a very high motor. I will give him that. He definitely is a high effort player, and he has some very nice line splitting passes on occasion. But he's just absolutely chaotic. And for a team that's so old, I think that's the absolutely worst thing you want. He can single-handedly eliminate them from the playoffs at some point. I understand he's going to play. They don't trust Avias in defense anymore, which is fine. I just think he's an absolute wild card. And that he should have been marking him. And he went down. He got lucky. I mean, maybe he did get clipped a little bit. I don't know. I haven't seen every zoom in. You don't think so?
No, absolutely not. I mean, when you slow it right down, this is a big debate with VAR. Not that they went to VAR, they just ruled it out. But when you slow things right down, any touch can look a lot worse. When it's at game pace and in real time, he's got to be better. I'm sorry. It's really, really poor defending. Surridge scored. He did the right thing. He did an intelligent run. He did a drop of the shoulder and went the other side. Falcone realised he was out of his depth and, in my opinion, did all he could to get that goal ruled out. It's the dark arts. He's done it, fair enough, but really harsh on Surridge and Nashville. And I think that could have been a changing point in the game, but Miami progress.
You think Noah Suarez worked in Miami's favor?
They just looked a lot more fluid up top. And Silvetti, we haven't really seen a lot of him, but the intelligence to look up and see Messi there. I mean, obviously, it's different when you have the best player alongside you, but anyone else would shoot and take the opportunity, especially getting a rare start. And he just looked quick. As I said, everything just flowed better up top. Suarez probably will come back in, understandably, just because he does have the quality and those moments sometimes. But I did like how they played. I thought they looked really good.
Yeah, I think they're really, really stellar. I mean, Messi has this air of inevitability about him right now. Obviously, 2 out of 3 gives a little more margin for error in a 1-game, 1-off. Like, if he doesn't have the moment, he can't capitalize on it. And I mean, that can happen against a really good team. Cincinnati in the next round, they're really, really good at home. And they're really, really clutch in the sense of they've won a handful of very narrow victories, kind of snatched from the jaws of defeat. And that's scary because I think Miami can, be out in front 1-0 for most of the game. And then all of a sudden the lead is just taken from them. And it's going to be a really ugly match. I don't think it's going to be as fluid. We're going to see Messi in the cold, which is another big test. He's going to be playing competitive games in late November in America. He's never done that before. And it gets cold in Ohio. Obviously La Liga, there were winter games, it's not pretending he hasn't done it, but he's never done it outside of Europe. So it's a first for him. He's so old, but he's still, the fact that there are things in the sporting landscape that he hasn't done before is amazing. Though I will say there were some very early season games that Messi played in, if you recall. I believe in the Leagues Cup it might have been, that it was absolutely freezing and he did play those. But winter cold versus spring cold is there's a different cut to the air, let's just say.
He's good enough. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Let's move ahead to Seattle, Minnesota. Game 1, Minnesota won via penalties at home. Seattle dominated game 2, 4-2 at Lumen Field in Seattle. Game 3, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. Seattle were up 2-0 very quickly, and that looked like it was it. It would have seemed inconceivable that they would have lost that game. It was 2-1 after an absolutely breathtaking free kick. And then Rosales was sent off at the start of the second half. 2-1 Seattle, Minnesota down a man. Rusnak at the post in the 54th minute. Seattle looked like they were going to keep knocking on the door and eventually burst it home. And then they just couldn't deal with 2 balls in the box, one off a long throw, one off a corner, and it's 3-2 Minnesota. Jordan Morris, who missed 80% of the season with injury. Of course, it was him who equalizes in the 88th minute. But they had no chance in extra time. And that extremely favored Minnesota. Down a man. Would they have been able to survive another 30 minutes? Maybe, but probably not. I understand not having extra time in the first 2 games of a best of 3 and going, if you want to even send them straight to penalties, fine. I think it should count as a draw and it's 1 point for each team, whatever. But you send it to penalties, fine. In a decisive game 3, you go to penalties after 90 minutes. It just disproportionately is not giving the advantage of a best of 3 is supposed to provide. It's not a full game. And Seattle would have won. I understand they were up a man, so you can say, well, they're only playing better, whatever. No, they absolutely destroyed them. Minnesota scored every single shot they had. Look, part of that, also penalties was an absolute farce. I mean, Seattle had multiple chances to win, decisive penalties to win that were missed or hit the post. I've never seen so many penalties in a single shootout hit the post. Ultimately, Seattle's backup goalkeeper came in for Stephen Fry. He missed his penalty after Dwayne St. Clair made his, and that's why Minnesota advanced. I just think you need to have extra time in a game 3. You need to. And that's not just bias of I think Seattle deserved to win anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's insane. Minnesota advanced because they won penalties twice. That's it. I mean, look, it's more fair than a single game for the first round, but barely.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to go the distance. And you could say, well, they were, up or down a man, and that was Minnesota's fault. That's not Seattle's fault, and they didn't have the chance to. I mean, they did have a chance, but they didn't have the chance to really take advantage of that opportunity. And it does surprise me. I guess obviously they've done it just because they've added more games, so it's kind of more managing minutes. If you have to play an extra 30 minutes, it's going to be too much. But yeah, I don't like it at all. And even just from an entertainment aspect, this is what the MLS is about. This is what American sports is about. Some of the best games I can recall in knockout competitions, the World Cup, the Euros, more being biased, are games that have gone to extra time, and it's chaotic, and everyone's knackered, and it's long balls and just carnage inside the area. It can always throw up an upset. But yeah, Minnesota very much a snatch and grab. I don't think they'll go too much further in the playoffs, but they've given themselves an opportunity, and they've proved that they can come and battle through adversity to get there.
Look, and we're going to talk about the next round in just a second. And this is a Minnesota team that we said sold their best player 3 months ago, Tene Oluwasane, to Villarreal. Their attacking quality is asking. Kelvin Yeboah is a fine player. Thuong Wane is very interesting. They have very, very experienced players like Will Trapp. Michael Boxall's obviously had the assist on the flick on for the equalizing goal. Very compact side, but not particularly exciting. And they get an expansion team next. And say what you want about San Diego. We've sung their praises all season, but one of those teams is going to play for the Western Conference. A completely bang average Minnesota side and an expansion team. And I would say of the 8 teams remaining, those are no better than the 6th and 7th teams left. At best, at absolute best, the 6th and 7th teams best. And one of them will be the Final Four. With a chance, and if it's San Diego, they're going to host a home game to go to the MLS Cup Finals. That's just the way the table swung. Obviously, the margins at the top of the conference in the West we talked about are like 1 point here, 1 point there. So it's not a value statement to say, well, Minnesota was so much better than Seattle during the regular season, they deserve to host. I think they were 1 point better, and Seattle won the freaking League's Cup in the middle of everything. If you want to doubt their credibility, they absolutely thumped Miami at home in the middle of the season and looked dominant throughout. They just had a very slow start, ravaged by injuries, blah, blah, blah. But here we are.
It was a tough loss for sure. But should we take a look at the next round? I'm really interested to see what you think about, who's going to make it once we get back from the international break. It's annoying that there's a gap in between, but it is what it is.
It's a tease. We don't have our first one till November 22nd, which is in 11 days from when we're recording. And that's Vancouver versus LA, which we haven't talked about either of those teams so far today. That's the game of the season so far. Oh my goodness gracious. In Vancouver, Thomas Muller, Heung-min Son. This is the MLS Cup Finals to me. These are the 2 best teams in the league. These are 2 of the 3 best teams in the league outside of Miami. I have no idea, is what my prediction.
There's layers to it. Not only is it a coin flip anyway, they're both so good. Obviously, one team's got home advantage. The other team has Heung-min Son, who has linked up incredibly well with Boanga since coming in. They've looked one of the most dangerous teams, definitely in the last 10 games or so. But they both qualified or progressed earlier than the others. So they've had all of this extra time to prepare for this one game in particular and to recoup and recharge. No idea which way it's going to go. I said in an earlier episode, I think LAFC will make it. And I still am going to go with that hunch, but I think this could be one of the games of the whole MLS Cup playoffs for sure.
Still some fitness issues for Vancouver. Is Ryan Gauld fit enough to start? Will they chance him to start? I don't know. Tristan Blackman, one of the best MLS defenders in the country this year, obviously member of the best 11, called up to the U.S. men's national team. He's a question. Brian White, still a question fitness-wise. And then LAFC, who kind of have had all these rotating players around the big two up front and kind of have a solidified starting 11 now. Will that be to their benefit? Obviously, they've scored so many goals at home. Can they do it on the road? Hostile environment. Really, really fascinating. I wish this one was a best of 3, but this is going to be one-off. I am going to predict. I don't know. I think Vancouver win because they're at home. And they just prevent LAFC from getting that 1 or 2 moments. I'm just going to say 2-1.
2-1. Okay, we're going to scores. I'm going to go 2-1 in the other way. I'm going to go LAFC. We'll take this on the road.
I can't be upset. I can't be upset either way. This is really a coin flip. All right. We're going to go back east. Cincinnati, Miami. Oh boy. I'm going to pass this one to you first.
Well, this is another really, really close call. And it's a difficult one because obviously Cincinnati finished ahead of Miami in the Eastern Conference, only on goal difference, incredibly. I wouldn't say they're a better team than Miami at all. They seem to grind out results. And it's very much a contrast here because I believe Cincinnati have conceded the second fewest goals in the Eastern Conference. Very, very good and, great at winning by just 1 goal. It's not usually blowouts. It's just a controlled performance. But also, I was having a look at this earlier. The only one team in the MLS reached 70 goals this season, and that was Miami, and they got to 81. No one else in the entire league got above 68. So it's very much, an absolutely booming offense against a defense that is very, very sure of themselves. So I've no idea how this one's going to go. I also believe that Miami will progress, but like you said, with the climate and Cincinnati having the home advantage, there definitely could be a spanner in the works here. But I'll go also for a 2-1.
If this was in Miami, I would honestly say 4-0 to Miami.
Okay.
But it's not. Cincinnati have looked a lot better, honestly, since Matt Biazga's gotten hurt. Pat Noonan, veteran coach. I thought they got absolutely destroyed on the road against Nashville, and I thought, against Columbus, and they would have lost that series if they didn't have home field. I still think Miami have too much quality. I think they're going to win 3-1. I think Cincinnati got to go off of something fluky. I'm just going to say, 3-1 Miami. Now we get a little less interesting, but still plenty of spice. Philly NYC, one of the biggest sports rivalries in America, in anything. This game will be in Philadelphia. Obviously, the top-seeded Philadelphia Union against an NYCFC side that is advanced in 3. Obviously, Philly have the extra rest, but international break means it doesn't really matter. I think this is going to be a penalty game. I think it's going to be 1-1. I think Philly are going to be frustrated. NYCFC will have that one moment. Alonso Martinez, super, super speedy, though he doesn't know where the goal ever is that he's shooting at. I'm going to say 1-1, and I can't predict penalties because penalties don't matter. It's not part of the sport. It's literally flipping a coin 10 times. So it's 1-1 into pence, and then someone will win.
Interesting today. I mean, they played recently, and it was very close, but it was the end of the season, and it was when Philly got the Supporters' Shield. And Martinez has looked great, and they seem to just grab a goal out of nothing, which is a great asset to have. I think Philadelphia will be quite comfortable. I disagree. It'll go the distance. I think they'll win 2-0. I don't think they'll blow them out of the water per se, but I think that they'll probably keep a clean sheet and be fine here. All
right. We have agreed on one of the 3 so far. San Diego, Minnesota. I think we're going to agree on this one. I just don't think this Minnesota team has much, especially on the road. San Diego seems like they got some celebrities who have been coming to games, kind of building a fortress over there. Pellegrino looks really good now in the starting 11. Lozano option off the bench. They could do the front 3 with Lozano, Pellegrino, and Dreyer, which is obviously just too good for the MLS, and they've had some really impressive players in midfield. They have at least 5 players who would be Minnesota's best or second best player. And this is an expansion side. I'm going to go 2-0 to San Diego.
I'm going to go 3. I'm going to go 3-0. I think they'll, Minnesota have done well to get to this point. Fair enough. I think Seattle would have been quite an interesting game over at San Diego. It isn't to be. I think they'll walk it. Draw is too good. And as much as I've got respect for Coach Eric Ramsey, I think he's going to get humbled in this one.
Hey, if you want to get involved in the conversation, shoot us an email at jeremy.goldstein@reachplc.com. Please engage by subscribing to the show wherever you get podcasts and leave us a like while you're at it. That's the end of part 1 of this week's All Out Soccer. But stick around for part 2 just after this break. All right, Joe, the U.S. men's national team. Another camp. There's not that many left before the World Cup, and there's a lot of big names who are not on the sheet. Who is missing?
Well, Captain America, Christian Pulisic, is not going to be in this camp. He's still not 100% recovering from an injury that's kept him out of the Milan side. Unfortunately, where Rafael Leao has now surged, and become the main guy again. So he's not playing. Timothy Weah is also absent. Chris Richards, after his little back and forth with Pochettino and Glasner, is not playing. Tyler Adams picked up a knock. Malik Tillman is not playing, but the other Tillman is. And Anthony Robinson still has not even featured, so he will be out, and he is becoming now a real concern for the World Cup next year. But yeah, it's a bit of if it was like the last roster where there can be a bit of experimentation and something left to prove, I feel like after this, it'll be the main crux of players, obviously fitness dependent. But I think this is the last chance for, some of the fringe guys to really make a statement, including one guy we'll get onto later.
Yeah, you want to just kind of see your I was telling you this the other day. You want to see these 4 or 5 guaranteed starters in the team each game, even if it's a friendly, and just mix and match with everyone around them. Because Pulisic is starting. He is starting. So you want to see whatever center forward's playing, how they look next to him. And if he's not playing, you kind of just want whoever's there to look as close of a replica to Christian Pulisic as they can. But they can't, because it's going to be someone like Diego Luna, who, in my opinion, absolutely sucks. So you're just not going to get that Pulisic replica. And you're just playing a striker who's not even going to be playing in a system that looks like this lineup that Pochettino is going to roll out next summer. So it's very, very hard to properly analyze the players in. And like you were saying, I think it's still, unfortunately, because of the injuries, it's that time of year, whatever, we're still in experimentation phase, which is okay. That's all you can do, but we still are. At least he has what it looks like to be a formation he likes.
Yeah, I think that's a bit harsh on Luna. I'm a big fan of Diego Luna. I don't think he's going to start. Don't get me wrong.
He hasn't been in form in quite some time.
Agreed. But yeah, that is true. I feel like, we say every week about a player that could do with a move. We don't want to lose him from MLS, but I feel like he is a candidate for that. But it's frustrating. You want to build that rapport, that chemistry, and like you say, have those cornerstones in the team, and then maybe, filter out who goes around them to see who's working the best. But it's still a big test against Paraguay and Uruguay. So I'm excited to see what they've got. And I mean, if they suffer 2 bad losses, it's not going to be good. So they've still definitely got standards to, reach, even though it's friendly games.
I want to talk about one of the more interesting players in this pool, and that's Gio Reyna, who, back from the freaking dead, my man, holy moly. I mean, he came up with Dortmund in the winter of 2020 when he was still 17. He had an assist to Erling Haaland pre-COVID in the Champions League against PSG. That feels just like another generation ago. We were university students. Everything was different back then. He's accrued 8 goals and 32 caps for the U.S. men's national team. Since then, he scored against Panama in the fall of 2020. He was starting for Dortmund. He was assisting for Dortmund. He had, I think, 3 or 4 assists game that fall. And he looked like the in vogue player. He scored in that famous 2021 CONCACAF Nations League win over Mexico. U.S. won 3 of those in a short span from 2021 to 2024. He was player of the tournament in 2024. He was in all 3 CONCACAF Nation League best 11s. I think 2023 was when he actually looked the best, just absolutely controlling the game from midfield. 2024 was with Poch. I mean, you can't say he hasn't played the new team. So far this year, he moved obviously to Borussia Mönchengladbach, ending his stint with Borussia Dortmund. A lot of Borussias a lot of Bachs and Munz and blah, blah, blah. He's played 6 league games, 1 start, 150 minutes. I mean, like, that's not a sample to say anything conclusive. He's playing in a top 5 league in a team that is very, very injured in Dortmund. In Gladbach. They're missing their striker, Tim Kleindienst, just a name I like to say. I don't know. I mean, like, why the hell not? Pochettino previously said he's trying to root out some of the entitlement on the squad. I think Reyna is exactly the player he's referring to when he says that. He said this in the recent press conference. He said there's no doubt that Giovanni is a special player. That is why we need to be open and to provide him with an opportunity that can be a boost of motivation for him to be with us. It is a motivation. He knows he's still in the picture. He is in the picture. There is a chance that Reyna can be in the national team this summer, and hopefully that little bit of inspiration can inspire a good season out of him. Because unless he is really, really good, he should not be in the team at this moment. He was at his best when kind of the U.S. was building the team around him. That can't be the case anymore, especially in a midfield too. And I don't think he's good enough to be one of those inside forwards, even though, I mean, he is, but it would be him and Christian Pulisic, and I think you want someone, unfortunately, who's a little more of a wide threat. So it's a prayer. It's a prayer, and it's definitely worth it. And he has far more upside than anyone else Pochettino could have called up.
I just hope he takes this opportunity with both hands, because without being funny, if other players, we've mentioned so much talent that's not made the roster through injury. If they were there, I don't think he's going to be involved at all. And, he said about the entitlement, obviously the whole fallout with Greg Berhalter and that whole situation we don't need to go back into, but he's got a real opportunity here. Whether he might not play a lot, he might play one game, he might come on in both, who knows, but he really needs to grab it. He needs to show his ethic in training. Whether he's going to have a route back into the squad, Poch has thrown him a bone. He said he's an enormous talent, and sometimes when guys are struggling, they can still be of importance to us. That's his, he's not going to get much more faith than that. So he really needs to take this opportunity. And if he doesn't, I think that kind of sets up his future for the national stage.
Yeah, Joe, also a bit of a story with Chris Richards. Obviously, he's still playing for Palace right now, but he's not going to be playing for the US this window.
Yeah, so we covered that before about, Palace, or Oliver Glasner, the boss, was annoyed that Chris Richards played in the friendlies, even though he had asked the US team to not feature him, nursing a calf issue. That was kind of disproven when he was rested in midweek on the trip back to domestic football, or soccer, I should say, and then he played at the weekend. So it's kind of like, well, he's played 90 minutes, he can't be that injured. This time he's out of the squad due to injury, but Pochettino has finally kind of clapped back. Interestingly, he said Milan or Palace, he's reeled Milan and Pulisic into this equation as well. They have no right to complain. We are the first that care, and we never play a player with any doubt. So he's very much said, unless we think that they're good to go and they're absolutely fine, they won't be playing. And he's kind of bitten back there. We went through this before. Clubs always want to preserve their players, that they've got their own revenues and, challenges that they're pursuing themselves. And sometimes going multiple continents away and playing soccer isn't exactly what they'd want. But I think this is also a bit of a wake-up call for Glasner. He's been pushing and banging this drum about being a better team and retaining players and pushing on in Europe. Well, you were at Frankfurt, you know how this goes. If you want to have these best players, you've got to understand that they're going to require more playtime.
Yeah. Let's just to look at some of the center back options around him. I'm just going to quickly go through the team, and then I'm going to hyper focus on the defense before we talk about the upcoming friendlies. So the team in full, starting with goalkeepers, is Matt Fries, again sorted by number of caps. Matt Fries, Patrick Schulte, Roman Celentano, and Jonathan Klinsmann. In defense, Tim Ream, Miles Robinson, Serginho Dest, Mark McKenzie, Joe Scally, Maxi Arfston, Alex Freeman, John Tolkien, Austin Trusty. In midfield, Christian Roldan, Gio Reyna, Aidan Morris, Tanner Tessman, Sebastian Berhalter, and Timothy Tillman. And up top is Brandon Aronson, Ricardo Pepi, Forlin Balogun, oh my gosh, Haji Wright, and Diego Luna. I think the players in this pool I disagree with the most. Timothy Tillman, he was a light call-up. John Tolkien, currently playing in the Bundesliga too. Thought he was good at Red Bulls, but I can't really say I've watched him this season. And then Diego Luna, who I just need to see more from, and I just also don't think his profile, again, if we're going for a profile like him, I'd rather see Gio Reyna in the team. Anyway, I think the biggest omission is Noah Hockey Banks, who's kind of a starter now for FC Augsburg, mid-table Bundesliga side. There's no space for him. With Cameron Carter-Vickers out out. Pochettino went for Austin Trusty, also at Celtic, also American, kind of a like-for-like replacement. The center back options currently in the team, again, with no Richards, it's Tim Ream at Charlotte FC, 38, still doing his thing. Miles Robinson, 28 at Cincinnati. Good performance in the last round of the MLS Cup. Mark McKenzie, who you did a really nice deep dive on last week. He's looked pretty good for Toulouse this season. And Austin Trusty. That's it. Those are your 4. That's not a really good group, though, overall. Again, Richards will make it look a lot better. But if you're playing a back 5, I mean, you could start Scally in that back 5, but yikes. That's still my biggest part of concern in the squad. What about you?
Yeah, it's not a deep squad. You know, the 2 problem areas, we've been saying about this for a long time. You know, the defense, it's basically the spine, the defense, and then those 2 in midfield are so important. There isn't a lot of depth here. I'm excited for McKenzie to get more playing time. I really think he's got a good future. And that, you know, there's some players in there, even Miles Robinson, it's got something to prove, but a bit worried about that. You know, Uruguay aren't the force that they used to be. I'm obviously discounting Paraguay. They got some great forwards too. But yeah, if they dominate the middle of the park and then can find gaps in that defense, it could be a difficult one.
Yeah, and let's look at the 2 matchups. We got Paraguay on Saturday, and then I believe next Tuesday it's a matchup against Uruguay. Both similarly ranked to the U.S., who are still somehow in the FIFA top 20 overall rankings. Who do Paraguay have? Omar Alderate currently plays for Sunderland, center back. Miggy Almiron at Atlanta. He's been there forever. Also Atlanta, Tata Martino's back. That's not something we got a chance to talk about this week, but very interesting hire. Then Diego Gomez at Brighton. Uruguay, talented team. There is no Fede Valverde and no Darwin Nunez in camp for Uruguay. Again, in the World Cup, that would be great. So the U.S. have a better chance of winning, but in the build-up to the World Cup, you want to see teams playing at full strength. Obviously, they're still coached by Marcelo Bielsa, so expect the unexpected with Uruguay. Also expect a 0-0 draw, because that's somehow what every game against a South American opponent is. But it'll be interesting. It'll be good. What's a successful 2 games look like for you, besides the results?
Well, that's the thing. When it's friendlies and it's kind of getting this close and the result isn't... It sounds weird. You'd rather lose 2-1 than win 1-0 by not playing well. And that sounds kind of crazy. You want to, aside from the result, you just want to see Pochettino's strategies paying off. You want to see 100% work ethic, 100% work rate. You just want to leave this camp feeling hopeful and excited about this team, knowing that they've got all these players to come back. I just want to see a good performance. I think, I don't know, being realistic with those players missing for Uruguay, you'd hope for at least 1 win over the 2 teams, potentially 4 points. I know obviously it's non-competitive, but yeah, if they can stay unbeaten, great. But you just want to come away from this feeling really positive, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if ideally you have standouts, again, Christian Roldani impressed so much last camp that he's genuinely a shout to start for this team. If 1 or 2 more players can emerge from this camp, especially in the defensive third, as like, you know, this guy has to start, I think that's what you want to see. We're going to quickly conclude with some Gianni Infantino news. You want to take this one away?
Sure. It's an interesting one there. So obviously, as we know, Infantino and Donald Trump, President of the United States, have been very close recently. FIFA offices opened up in the Trump Tower in New York. They've been having several chats in the Oval Office. Obviously, Trump was at the very center of the Club World Cup trophy lift with Chelsea midfielder Cole Palmer, not really sure where to look. But a former FIFA executive has made a few interesting comments about Infantino recently. Just to, you know, put things into perspective here, Infantino was recently with Trump, talking about Trump at the American Business Forum in Miami. And he said, I think we should all support what he's doing because it's looking pretty good. He's allowed his opinion. That's fine. Maybe not when you're the FIFA president, which obviously that suggests a political bias or some sort of leaning. And Miguel Maduro, the former chairman of FIFA's governance committee, so it's not someone that doesn't know what he's talking about, has basically called him out and saying that he is, you know, doing exactly what I said. He's showing a political bias. He's showing a leaning, and this is not allowed in FIFA. He said he's doing more than recognizing the legitimacy of Trump. It's endorsing his political program, and he's arguing that others should support him too. Now, just quickly, violating the code of ethics of FIFA can lead to obviously fines, but can lead to a ban of football-related activity for up to 2 years. highly unlikely we're going to see it for this. It was a very offhand comment, but just an interesting one to look at because there's been a few claims with Infantino and Trump being very tight recently. Let's just say that.
Well, it also seems like Infantino is about to hand him the first FIFA Peace Prize at the World Cup draw on December 5th at the Kennedy Center, a center that Trump, mind you, wants to rename the Donald Trump Center because, of course, he does. The FIFA Peace Prize, what is it? It is the Nobel Peace Prize runner-up trophy. Let's be real. That Infantino said Trump should have won. What does the FIFA Peace Prize go to? It goes to an individual who has taken exceptional and extraordinary actions for peace. According to Donald Trump, he's ended 8 wars, which, is very stripped of any sort of context going on and honestly kind of reductionist of other people and actors and regions doing things. But anyway, U.S. columnist Leander Sher-Lakins, who works for, Guardian U.S. columnist, he accused FIFA of, quote, being fully focused on monetizing the sport no matter the collateral damage. And that means for Infantino, literally getting in bed and having proverbial sex with Donald Trump, which is literally what this is. This is doing anything he can to keep Donald Trump happy in the hope that FIFA can just kind of suckle from the U.S.'s teat for whatever extra revenue they can get out of this World Cup this summer. And Trump is absolutely eating it up. And Infantino has proven he will get into bed with literally anyone to make money. And he says making money is good because this money gets reinvested in FIFA programs all around the world. And it's hard to really argue with that because that's like a great thing to say. But that's also not fully true of where this money goes. Anyway, it's a little dangerous, but we're going to see how everything goes between Infantino and Trump this summer. And Trump, you want to bet now on Kalshi.com that he's going to win the FIFA Peace Prize? Because I don't think it's going to me, but we're going to have to stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, you've bravo. I don't really have anything to add there, but I really wish we could keep politics out of football and just all sports. I know it's impossible in this day and age, but I don't know. As someone that doesn't want to get into it too much, I just really hope it's a great World Cup. We hear a lot of the storylines about the negatives and complaints about tickets and fees and all of these other things. It's meant to be a celebration where the world comes together to play soccer. And I just want it to be as good as possible. And it has the opportunity to be. So fingers crossed they pull it off.
I mean, it's meant to be a celebration, but it's really going to be the parade of modern capitalism. And it's going to be interesting. But hey, Messi and Ronaldo.
The last time, the last dance.
The last dance. Well, Ronaldo, you never know. Was whatever whatever drugs he's taking, he's going to keep him around forever. So we will see. That just about wraps it up for this week's All Out Soccer. He's been Joe McBride. I've been Jeremy Goldstein, and we hope you can join us again on the next episode next week. Or as Thomas Muller would say, Auf Wiedersehen. See ya.